Why are you running?
Private comments. First one, I was the 69th like. Mong anh sẽ ra thêm cả tutorial tiếng Việt. Hiện tại thì mình mới chỉ đang có ý định làm tutorial tiếng Anh thôi. Chắc chắn sẽ có dịp nào đấy mình sẽ làm tiếng Việt. Bởi vì mình biết là khán giả của mình đại đa số xem đều là người Việt. Nên là mình sẽ cố gắng là để cả phụ đề tiếng Việt và tiếng Anh ở dưới. Alright, next question. Awesome technique. I would have wasted way more time manually keyframing those waves. I love to see your approach towards gradients. You seem to get a really good sense of depth within a shape that I haven't managed to figure out. Okay, yeah, that's a great question. The thing about color is something a lot of people has been asking me about my work. So yeah, I would usually I can't put these kind of thing down to pen and paper, but I'll try to explain it the best I can in my way. So yeah, let's jump in. Right, so first color. How I usually pick color in my projects. So usually there are two rules that I follow. The first one, I always start with the color principles, the basic principles of colors and design. And the second one is basically how I want the whole composition to feel like. So it's mostly, it's all based on feeling, improvising with the color and such. Okay, so in regards to color principles in design, there is an awesome tool you can use to check it out if you're not very well versed. Or more realistically, you don't have all of the principles memorized in your head. An awesome tool for that would be to go to Adobe Color, which used to be called Cooler, by the way, which I think is a better name. So in here it's gonna break down all of the color principles for you. So here we got analogous, sort of spread out like that, so you get color in a very limited range, but with a respective amount of intensity. So if you drag it up or down, you have monochromatic, which is very useful to pick out a color with varying degrees of lightness. Triad, we have over here, sort of self-explanatory within the name, basically. Complementary, which is my personal favorite, and the sort of color that I use in the other Bulge project. Split complementary, double split complementary, and a square, which I think it's particularly useful in creating sort of an overall arching color mood if you're about to do storyboarding or design a style frame, for example. You want to pick out an overall mood for your project, and I think square is a pretty useful principle. Compound and shades, pretty self-explanatory. And if you've already picked out one of these and you want to switch up a little bit of this color over here a little bit, you can use the sliders down here to be more precise regarding your color. If you go click on explore over here, you can actually see more of what other people has done. If you see a picture that has a certain color that you really want, you can use this tool over here and then import that using extract theme. And then you can extract that color theme from an image, for example. Yeah. So for this project, what I had based on the complementary color wheel was I had purple and yellow, I think. Yeah, And when I plug that into the into the ball right over here, I also figured that maybe because the ball is in space, for example, maybe for this main gradient here of the shape, what I'm gonna do is edit gradient. Here we go. So it's gonna be the main one are gonna be yellow and purple over here, and then for the end over here, I'm gonna drag it back and turn down the temperature a little bit because it's in space. In space is cold and dark and blue, so I drag it down a little bit, make sure I get a little bit of blue in there. And right here what I did was trying to make sure there's a smooth connection, a warm connection, sort of like a warm light source coming from somewhere outside into the ball, and that's gonna connect the this cold color over here with the warm one. So right here we're gonna make sure it doesn't feel too cold or too bare, like this, something like this. And then drag it down over here, get a little bit blue in there, make sure it goes darker a little bit so that's not too blue. And right here connecting the purple and the yellow, we're gonna put in a little bit of the orange, good old orange. So I know you're listening to me talking about the technique of dropping or adding to the temperature of the color, and that's actually something that I learned from watching one of the Futures video back when 4 or 5 years ago. Unfortunately, I don't remember specifically who talked about it. Maybe it was Christo, or could be Matthew Encino or Ben Burns. Yeah, but it was definitely in one of their videos that I learned about this technique that I've been using for such a long time now. So I just want to give a shout out to them. And if you want to take a dive deeper into learning about color and design, I suggest you go watch some of their old or maybe even recent materials. Yeah, definitely check them out. Gretel asks, I love your final results and your way of going about it, but for a beginner this tutorial is a little bit hard to follow. There's a lot of things that go unsaid and thus left a mystery all. I asked her if she can elaborate. Yes, and thank you so much for your response. I honestly would like to keep following your channel and learning from you, so I'm subscribing. Aww. The parts that I found the most puzzling were the value graph parts. There were a couple of things that were left unsaid that had me wondering for a while, like the smear part. Oh my god, when the little the mouth. Why can't I pronounce that word? The mount.
Oh my god, bro.
Mount suddenly it disappeared with the screen quality being so bad and the tiny font. I had no idea what happened. There were some crucial motion parts, including the value graph, where I felt you went too quickly, and I was left to pause and try to imitate the graph that was on the pause video. Oh man, I'm so sorry. Again, I had bad quality, and can barely see the tiny fonts and numbers, which made it frustrating, especially since I'm not familiar with the graph editor too much. I think just being more vocal about your workflow and thoughts and also procedures can really help others to replicate your projects and understand the concept in mind. It also helps those with very bad quality video or bad eyesight to use more auditory sense and learning. Okay, so that was an awesome question. Honestly, it's these kind of questions that makes me want to be better at doing all this. So yeah, Gretel, we're gonna jump right in and address your concern. So, right, the graph editor. Now I have to apologize for skimming through that in my first video. As you can tell, it's pretty unorganized. I'm gonna jump back into one of my first example over here so you can see what I'm talking about. So Let's just start from scratch. I'm gonna add in a few keyframes here based on what we talked about in the first video. Okay, this is gonna take a while. Okay, this looks good enough. So what I did over here is I put in exactly what I said the other day. That's when the small ball touches the surface of the big ball. It's gonna immediately compress this down to when the small ball is contained in the distortion of the big ball. And then all I need to do was add in a little bit of the tail. As you can see, the tail end over here is when the further it goes, the energy get weaker. And so if we highlight the rich keyframes, go over here to the graph editor, you can see right now I'm in a speed graph. So this is what we're gonna look at. So basically, right, I'm gonna explain to you the basic of the graph editor. The motion design community is split into two factions. The one that only use speed graph and the one that only use value graph, and both hate each other so much. Right now what I'm looking at is a speed graph. So as you can see over here, all of these lines are straight. All of these lines are all straights. And why is that? That's because it is a speed that this ball over here is being transformed into these keyframe. Basically, it is a speed that is taking this ball from this keyframe to this keyframe. Each of these lines over here contains the information about how fast this keyframe is being turned into this keyframe. It's basically how fast this property right here is transitioning from this keyframe to this keyframe. So basically, from this keyframe at which the ball is being deformed the most, over here, going over here to this keyframe where it's sort of like bouncing back, it is minus 180 units per second. So in order to smoothen everything out, all you need to do is go over here, highlight it all, and there's multiple way to ease these keyframes out. You can go over here and keyframe assistance and easy ease, or you can highlight them all and press F9 on your keyboard. So right here I'm gonna show you the graph, and what's gonna happen when you press F9 is that the speed sort of smooths out. When this keyframe over here move over to this keyframe, the speed is absolutely constant. Nothing changes about the speed. It's straight up is gonna be 312 units per second here. But when I highlight them all and press F9, as you can see now, the speed's gonna start off at 0, and as it come up over here to this point, it's gonna increase the speed gradually until it reaches about 500 units per second, and then it's gonna drop back down to 0, and that's when the movement sort of eased back in. And now, in order to replicate the movement of the surface of the ball, we're gonna have to adjust the speed at which it goes from one state to another looks realistic enough. So we're gonna make it start off over here. At 0, but it's gonna accelerate upwards a little bit. It's gonna accelerate drastically, and right here we're gonna have it ease down. We're gonna have a smooth ease down over here. So right here it's gonna start up quick, and over here it's gonna slow down gradually. So let's replay that. Same goes for the rest of these keyframes over here. These ones, I also gonna press F9 on the keyboard, and as you can see, all of them follow the same principle basically they're gonna start off at 0, the 0 line right here at 0 units per second, and then they're gonna speed up a little bit and then ease down. So right here, what we're gonna do is like that. So we're gonna have it sort of skip over the 0 a little bit so that it's more realistic, like that. The way I think about these speed units, that I don't usually overthink it, and also I try to keep these lines, the line that connects one state to the other, as smooth as possible. There we go. So we got something that looks like that. If you want this to ease even further, you can drag this keyframe out, then drag the speed in. So based on what we learned before, this one over here is gonna drop back to 0 real quick, and then it's gonna drop to whatever state this keyframe over here is gonna speed up to that, and then carefully ease back into 0. Yeah, so that at the end you can see that it is smoother a little bit than before. And now if you want to learn about the value graph, I'm gonna up over to the value graph by right clicking on the graph and hit edit value graph, and as you can see, it looks way different now. Instead of showing you the speed at which this keyframe is going over to this keyframe, it's gonna show you the actual the value is at 0 over here, as you can see, and it's going up over to about 38.4, which is the value over here. So basically the value graph is showing you which value the property is at and which value the keyframes is carrying that property to. So right now, instead of messing about with the speed at which the keyframe is transitioning between each other, now we're messing with how the keyframe is actually transitioning between each other. It's not their speed anymore, it's about their actual value. I'm hoping that you can understand me and maybe take this in a sort of educative way, and I'm very sorry about your lack of resolution and stuff, but I'm trying my best. If you don't understand any of this that I'm saying, you can totally hit me up down in the comments and I'll try to explain it even more. But basically, as you can see, this is the actual value of the keyframes being interpolated between each other. So if I add another keyframe over here, click, and I take it up to 430 something, and then you can see the keyframe over here is gonna be brought up to that. We're changing the actual value of the properties over here, right? So what's gonna happen when you highlight them all and press F9? You guys remember what F9 does, right? It eases up the keyframe, and in the graph you can see there are now curves. They're not straight lines anymore. If you click on one, as you can see, it's actually a Bezier curve. And like the speed lines, we can adjust how these Bezier curves behave. So if you hold down Shift, for example, you drag it out. So let me explain what's happening over here. If we put it this way, if we follow the lines, it's gonna be a gradual increase from 0 to the unit of 39, sorry. If we do it like this, but for example, if we take it, drag it down all the way down, and then drag it all the way up here, as you can see, it's still 0 over here. It's going up pretty slowly at this point, and it's taking a while before the speed shoots up through to 39. The value shoots up all the way to 39, not the speed, sorry. It's gradually increasing until it shoots up over here to this curve. If we put it something like this, it's gonna start off from 0 and then it's gonna shoot straight up to 33 until, you know, it eases up a little bit over here to 39. So I'm gonna show you, I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna show you how it looks in replay right here. So, you know, as you can see, it's not doing anything until, you know, it's not doing anything until it shoots up the value. Stuff like that. So now it's at 39, but it took a while to get there. Instead of, you know, if I put it this way, for example, and now if we follow the curve, it shoots up straight away to 39. So yeah, we can be pretty flexible about this curve over here. I personally, I always stick with the speed curve because that's how I've been doing it. If you like the value graph more than the speed graph, feel free to leave your comment down below so I can actually delete it. I'm just kidding, I won't do it. So Gretel, if you want to copy what I did in this project, you can feel free to take a look a little bit more in this, or you know, if you can always download my project file for free in my Gumroad to take a look at how it is. If you want to highlight all that and quote unquote copy how I did in this project over here, you can totally do that. Feel free to do that over here. I'm gonna leave that up for you if you want to pause the video, stuff like that. Yeah, I hope that was useful for you. That was actually a pretty good question. Really opened up the tutorial a little bit, so thank you so much. The video is super awesome, man. Kindly share more of such technical AE motion design stuff. Also reduce the meme bombs. Haha.
No.